everybody. I'm going to start a series of videos now about how to take a good jazz solo. This is good for the piano, but a lot of this information you could use for any other instrument. To play a jazz solo, you need to know the chords. If you understand the chords, the scales will be easy to understand. Use the scales and the chords to create great melodies and great improvisations. I'm assuming that you already know some basic chords, like the scale tone seventh chords, the diminished seventh chord, sixth chords, and if you understand 9th, 11th, and 13th chords, you'll be able to completely understand the most useful scales for jazz. These are the scales I'm going to explain: the chromatic scale, the blues scale, major scales, and the modes. The diminished scale, the whole tone scale, some pentatonic scales, minor melodic ascending scales, and the 4 most important modes for that scale, and maybe some other minor scales. Now that seems like a lot, so let's get to work. I'm going to start today with the major scale and the major modes. I picked the most confusing topic to begin with. I'm going to do this in the key of F instead of the key of C. I think the presence of the one black note for the key of F is going to help clarify some of this for you. Here's the first scale tone 7th chord, F major 7th, and of course the major scale goes with that. Okay? Then we move up to the next scale tone 7th chord, G minor 7th. And again, the same scale works. I'm starting on G now, but I'm using the same notes. Phrygian mode, Lydian mode, Mixolydian, Aolian, Locrian. And when I first encountered the modes, I thought it seemed kind of silly. Like, what is the point? You're just in the key of F, you're using the F major scale, so what? And a lot of times I think when you are using certain modes, you don't really have to think about what mode you're in. If you're playing a 2-5-1, for instance, in the key of F, and you're choosing to use the Dorian mode for the 2 chord, the Mixolydian mode for the 5 chord, and the Ionian mode for the 1 chord. Every one of those scales is in the key of F, obviously, and there's no need to think about Dorian and Mixolydian and Ionian. You can just think you're in the key of F and play a nice melody. Okay, now the thing is that in a good jazz solo, you're usually not going to play those 3 modes right in a row. On the dominant chord, or the 5 chord, that is the C7th, there's a lot of other scales that you can choose. The diminished scale is a great choice, and so are several others. So you'd end up with something more like this: a Dorian mode, which is thinking in the key of F, and maybe the diminished scale, and then you end back there in the key of F, a little bit in there too. Take the girl from Ipanema. The 2nd chord, G dominant 7th, okay? That's not a scale tone chord because the scale tone chord is G minor 7th. Any dominant chord I can use Mixolydian mode, and all I have to do is play the scale of that chord and flat the 7. G dominant 7th is a 5 chord in the key of C. So in the key of C, no sharps and flats, so that's the scale we're playing. But it's easier to think of it just as a G dominant 7th and play a G scale with the flat 7. Okay? So our progression goes F major 7th, G dominant 7th. That's where we're going to think about the Mixolydian mode. So here's how your thought process would go: F major, G Mixolydian, F major, F major, F major. So F major, G Mixolydian, F major, diminished, and back to F major. And I'll put some hip voicings in now for the left hand.